So, what's the life of a comic book artist?
Well, let's see. I would say that a life of a comic book artist is it's I like it. It's the only job that I've ever had for like longer than a few months. Um, so I guess I'll speak to my experience. I can't speak to what everyone's experience is, but I I think I like the challenge of taking the written word and turning it into visuals. Um, I guess it's challenging to keep everything at a good pace, getting things in on time, deadlines, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of difficult. Sometimes I don't know. It's not a very good
How
answer.
long have you been doing it for by now?
I've since I graduated college in 2012. So I've been working on some level of freelance uh, for over 10 years now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I didn't really hit my stride of like being able to support myself until around 2017, 2018, I think.
And we'll post some links in the show notes, of course, but kind of talk about some of the more prestigious things you've done just to kind of give
Okay.
an example. And then also want to dive into some of the Kickstarter projects and the other projects you've
Sure.
done too.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess one of the things that people might know is Raising Dion, which was adapted into a Netflix show. I'm not technically credited on that show, but the comic that it's based on was something that I worked on. There's only one issue of it, and it is called Raising Dion, and I basically did everything other than write it. So that's probably one of the more high profile things. There's also a book called Professor Nimble, which is a book written by a doctor in Seattle, a pediatric gastroenterologist, and it's
NIMBAL, right?
a what? Sorry.
Is it Nimble?
Oh,
N
and
I
yeah,
M.
NIMBAL. It's a book about. It's basically like Fantastic Voyage if you go inside somebody's gut to teach kids about inflammatory bowel disease, and it's been translated into I think 12 languages so far. We've got more on the way, and honestly, that considering that it's handed out to children, it's probably I don't know how many people have seen that, but it's probably a lot. So that's really cool. That's one of the projects that I'm really proud of, just because of like what it is for, um, it feels like a force for good. So
And we're
that's a
talking
cool
about
thing.
Eagles posters too, right? Like that's always
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, and the Eagles posters, those were new. That's a cool thing. I which is also like I'm not anyone who knows me knows I'm not like a huge sports guy, so that was kind of funny. And but yeah, I had a good time with that, and they keep asking me to do posters, so I'm assuming they like working with me. Um, but yeah, it's what else? What else have I done? Uh,
Sonic.
yes, Sonic. I've done comic covers for Archie's Sonic and Mega Man books when those were still happening. I think Sonic is a different publisher than Archie now. But back, yeah, I did a Sonic Universe book. I did two Mega Man covers. I did a cover for Super Duck. I'm not exactly sure what that comic was about, but it seems fun. Uh, what else did I do? I don't
So
know.
what's
It's done so much stuff.
yeah, I would say like what is the process of becoming, I mean, it's a pretty specific thing,
Mm-hmm.
especially considering that comic books were not as popular, call it 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They like comic book movies is this entire genre now. It's probably one of the most highest grossing film industries.
Right.
But 15, 20 years ago, comic books were kind of, nerdy and niche. So how did you
Yeah.
end up in this career path?
So uh, I always drew. I was always filling up sketchbooks when I was a kid. My mom is an artist, and I think really what did it, which is kind of weird, is the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. For some reason, after I saw that, I was like, I want to come up with characters and stuff, and I just started doing that. Um, and I don't know why it was that movie specifically, but I just like my desire for this career path sort of just like hit me full force at some point, and I was just like, this is what I want to do, and I was consumed by it. And it's really, it's basically just been my whole life, is like training to get better. There's a challenge to it that is really fulfilling in a way that I don't think I find in many other places. There's a skill aspect to it. There's a um it's just like you have this idea of what you want it to be. Anytime you start a project, you have this idea of what you want the project to be, how you want it to look, and it's never quite there. And so you're always kind of like chasing this idea of like what you want the work to look like. Um,
I think one of the things
it's yeah,
that's pretty cool about comic books too, I mean, at the end of the day, it's storytelling, and storytelling
right,
is the oldest thing of humanity. It's how we've always passed around our history to one another, setting around fires, way back when, and now we do it through tons of different modalities and mediums. But the interesting thing about storytelling with comic books is that there's the big visual element, and then
right,
there's the artistry, and then there's the composition of a panel. There's the
yeah.
words that you write as well. I mean, what's your process if you say, okay, I want to communicate something or tell a story, tell a character? How do you break it down? Where do you start? How do you start thinking about panels? What's your process?
So if I am given a script, um, there's a little bit of a difference. I'll talk about what I do mostly, which is when I get a script. Um, when I'm given a script, uh, a lot of times it's got kind of like how many panels are on a page. It might have indications of like what a shot's going to look like or what the writer wants it to look like. And the key for me is really trying to isolate like what the core of the panel is. Like, what are you actually trying to say in the panel, um, and in the sequence of panels, right? So each page kind of has a point that you're trying to get across, and each panel also has to say kind of like one specific thing. If you're trying to do too many things in one panel, the reader isn't really going to know visually what you're trying to have them focus on. So you kind of have to break down like what is the best way to have a shot look like. If so, for instance, if you're trying to draw something that looks ominous, right, you have to figure out a way. You can't just show the subject in like a flat plane. You have to figure out a way to make that look more ominous. um
How do you figure out how to figure that out? I mean, if you told me,
hmm,
imagine an ominous figure, I would say, dark and scary, right? Like there's a whole process that needs to go into
yeah,
what angle positioning. How do you end
there's
up
a
figuring that out?
a lot of it is just studying a lot of other work. I mean, it's not like there's a, I think we all have like an innate sense, right? So comic book artists have styles. There's a, the top artists, like I don't know, like you were very, like I remember when we were kids, you were very into Michael Turner, right?
Yep, it's my
And
jam.
yeah, and so for anyone who doesn't know, Michael Turner's art was very, uh, his figures were very elongated in a lot of ways. They had like the line work was kind of sketchy looking. There wasn't a lot of it wasn't super smooth. It was very like textural in a lot of ways, in my opinion, in terms of line quality. And the way that he would go about crafting an ominous image would be very different than me, or very different than like Mike Mignola or whatever. But there's a core element of like what terrifies you, or like what makes you feel uh, a certain way. But then there's also like the other parts of it, like, well, if you have it in shadow, that's scary because the unknown is scary, right? Or if you have like a low angle, if you have a low angle, like looking up at a figure in a dark house, right, like with a doorway that's like silhouetting them, right, like that can look ominous. But how do I make it look more ominous? Oh, I'm gonna put like blood on the floor, right? Now that's adding like more context. So it's pushing the idea as far as it can, so that immediately when you look at it, you go like, oh, okay, I have a visceral reaction to this. Um, and it's, I don't know, it's a lot of practice. Like I don't feel like I nail it every time. Um, but
But do you go in with an intent of what you want to convey in this panel, and then you're kind of probing the depths of human psyche and visual imagery to achieve that? Or is it more of just like you do it and it conveys the message and it's kind of
I
that
think,
magical
well, so
artistry?
like I think that a lot of it is, for me at least, it well, okay, to be perfectly honest, sometimes it depends on like how fast you have to get something done, right? There's like a bag of tricks that you know, like, okay, this kind of shot's gonna work, this kind of shot's gonna work. Um, but if you have the time and you really want to push it, yeah, it's there's a there's a study that you have to put in. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's very like it's very hard to explain. It's not good for a podcast. It's very it's kind
Well,
of, you have to kind of feel it out. Like you need to be
yeah.
able to like look at it and feel it out in a way that makes sense, I guess, which is
I think
not
at the,
a
the
very
the
clear
very
answer.
nature of art is visual, right? So
Yeah,
you're working with images far more than words. And when you translate into words enhance the image, right? Words enhance the storytelling of a comic book, but it's a very different medium in its entirety. So I mean, it makes sense that it's hard to kind of find the specific words to capture it.
yeah. I guess if you're somebody who wants to try to start getting into what makes an image click, right? Or like what makes it work. Really the thing you have to do is look at other people's work and figure out what about that work is speaking to you and why it's speaking to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um because as you like, art is subjective, right? Like there are people that would look at, since I already brought him up, would look at Michael Turner's work and be like, not for me, right? But for you, it like really, there was something about it that really hit you. Um, and what for me, when we were hanging out, it was Jim Lee. I don't, I'm not sure what
Everyone's
about.
impressed with Jim Lace, but
I
yeah.
know. I mean, but like that was, but you were very into Michael Turner.
Yeah.
Um, if I can't, I mean, I know you're the interviewer, but like, what about Michael Turner spoke to you, if you can remember?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough question, right? Like why do you like what you like? Is kind of what the
Right.
question boils down to, and especially when it's something that's nonverbal. Um, I think for me, there's something about Michael Turner's work that is graceful and accentuates the ideal. So I think it's probably similar to how the Greeks did, marble statues of people in perfect form, and that was kind
Mm-hmm.
of the ideal of the human body. And so I think for me, it's something about that. But then you kind of mentioned the scratchiness or the roughness of it too. Yeah, it's just very appealing. It's hard to kind of find the right words. It's appealing to me in terms of
Yeah.
why. It's hard to break that down. Yeah,
Yeah. And like I really like Mike Mignola is like a huge, I mean, again, a very, everyone loves Mike Mignola, right? But there's the thing about his work to me that's really interesting, is it's almost like woodcuts,
yeah,
right? Like he's taking he's everything is so graphic. It's so simple, not streamlined. I don't want to say simplified, but it's very streamlined. He's only putting marks down that need to be there, right? Whereas, you have other artists that will do hatching and like, lines everywhere, and those are good too. And they all, each thing has their value, has its value.
I
Um,
highly recommend everyone Google these names so you can kind of see their work. Mike
right?
Mignola,
Yeah,
some of
it's
his best
hard to.
work is Hellboy. Specifically for Michael Turner, it was Batman Superman was where I fell in love with him, and Jim Lee did a wonderful Batman run from Jason Mye's childhood. But I'm sure they have
Yeah.
tons of other good work too.
Also, he was very big on uh, '90s X-Men. Was, I think, where Jim
90s.
Lee
That's where he
came into.
got his claim to fame. He's a
But
former
yeah,
surgeon, I think, or doctor, so he
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 was
he
in
knows
med
his
school. I don't
anatomy
know if
quite
he
well.
actually was a
Okay.
doctor, but yeah, he was in med school, which is kind
You
which
touched
explains
earlier.
why he might be good at anatomy.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah,
You touched earlier on certain projects need speed and just kind of touching on that business side of being a freelance artist.
Right.
What's it like to be a freelance artist? What are the things that you're considering? How do you find your jobs? Talk a little bit about that world of freelance art.
So I've been very lucky in the sense that most of my jobs come to me. I just get emails being like, "Do you want to do this project?" Especially now at this point in my career, which are basically just like, "Hey, I have this project. Are you interested?" And I'll either say yes, no, or I don't have time. Right? If I am interested, I might just not have time to fit it in. I am not the fastest artist, which is also uh, can be difficult uh, because I then have to pick my projects very carefully. At least when it comes to comics, it's kind of interesting. Like I'm used to doing comics, so when I get a straight illustration, like a standalone illustration, I'm really quick. And then with comics, I'm like I just finished up a page that took me. I'm not even done. I still have to color it, and it took me like 20 hours. Um, so it's a I keep time
Is that a lot or a
logs.
little time?
Uh, it's it's on the higher end. I mean, I'm sure that there are people that have. I feel like that's probably a lot. Most people probably aren't spending more than I like. I would like to not have to spend more than about 12 hours from start to finish, not including color. Color's kind of its own thing, which I don't always color my own pages. Um, but yeah, I think it's hard to balance. You're always gonna I tend to also like need extensions, but usually because I'm very communicative with my clients, they don't mind. I'm sending like regular updates almost every day. So it's I guess it's you have to just learn what your workload is and learn like not to exceed that as much as possible, right? Because if you overpack yourself, the work is going to suffer. Um, and I never want the work to suffer. I would rather have a bunch of. I'd rather have like a smaller breadth of work that is good than have a wider breadth of stuff that I'm not happy with. Which is not. I
Yeah.
mean, some other artists would feel the opposite of that. Um, but comics especially kind of take a lot out of me, so I don't really want to commit to something if I'm not interested in it. Um, I should say can take a lot out of me. It depends on what I'm doing.
Talk
Uh,
about the kind of the balance between, or not the balance, but the dichotomy between like full time employment and artists that sometimes are full time employed versus going the freelancer route and the pros and cons between the two.
you mean like in a studio, like if you're working in a studio setting, or
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
or any other type of maybe studio is the only setting that there is for that, but like why specifically freelancer? What do you like about that? What do you not like? What would you recommend to other people who might be on the same path?
So I would say that freelancing is one of those things where you have to be very, um, you have to kind of be very responsible and diligent and able to make yourself do things. Especially if you
Self
don't have
discipline.
like a dedicated, yeah, you don't, if you don't have a dedicated office space, like, as you can see, my bed is right here, right? I'm working in this, like, I'm having the call in the space where I also have my desk, like right here. So um, you have to be able to like motivate yourself, uh, which that's never really been a problem for me as long as I have something that I need to do. If I have a deadline, like I can motivate myself to do something. So if you're somebody who like needs instruction, if you're somebody who's like, I'm not gonna do it if I like, there are people. I have friends who like it's hard. It's like you procrastinate. The temptation is there to be like, well, I'm my own boss. I'm my own boss. I can make my own hours. I can do whatever I want. But that never it stops working after a while. If you get a little too lax, everything starts piling up, and you're like, oh god, no! Like, so you have to have a lot of self discipline if you're gonna do it. Um, which that can be learned, right? No one's perfect right out of the gate. Uh, the pricing is difficult. I've gotten to a point where at least with comics, I roughly know like what my what my prices are. But like discovering that is hard, right? Like if you underprice yourself and like I had earlier jobs where like I would do something and I'd be like, well, I spent way too much time on that for the amount of money I was being paid.
Do you
So
track your kind of per hour earnings and like doing a retrospective to evaluate this was X per hour, therefore it was worth it versus that was Y per hour and it's not?
sometimes it's not quite that clean cut a lot of the time, because a lot of times like the project feels worth it even if I'm like technically over budget. Um, but I usually, I mean, there are some projects where I will price per hour and some where I will price flat. Like character designs, I will often price per hour. Or I'll do like a flat rate up front and then I will have like a per hour. Like I might do like, you know, 100, $200 as like a deposit. And then if I go over that and people are still giving me revisions for like, oh, change this, change that, then I will say like, okay, well, it's like, you know, 50, $75 an hour. Depends on like what the project is, who the client is. Um, but yeah, there are definitely times where I look back and I'm like, well, I need to raise my rates, right? Which is also just like, you know, that happens, just living situations change where you're, you know, when I was living in Lancaster, my rent was not quite as expensive, right? So I was able to uh, price myself a little bit uh, lower, or I guess you could say more competitively, than I can now because my living expenses are much higher. So um, yeah, that's hard. It's a hard balance to strike. I've been really lucky in the sense that I haven't had to have another job in a while. Um, since about 2018, I haven't had to have another job. Um, but I have friends that have part-time jobs, honestly, just to like keep themselves sane and like have a social life. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna pick up I'll pick up a shift at a bar or whatever, just so I have social interaction." Because that's the other thing about working freelance is it can be very isolating, right? And if I'm okay with that, like I'm kind of an introvert. I'm a lot of an introvert. So I don't mind being alone for long periods of time. But you know, even I'm kind of like I need to get out of here sometimes. Like I'll go to the park, like when it's warm or something. Like I've taken my iPad and like gone to the park uh, to draw, which is nice. Um,
Talk to me about IP and diverse income streams. So, art in and of itself is intellectual property. You're creating something out of nothing,
right.
and then there's licensing. And obviously, you're doing this for clients, but there are also things that you create. I'm thinking your brushes, but also spaceman and bloater and other
Sure.
things. So, talk to me about for an artist that's kind of going this freelance route. What are the other vehicles for generating money, and then also kind of getting on that residual royalty train or other IP train?
Right. So I would say it's a good question. I would say that when you're starting out, any project that you get, a lot of them are going to be work for hire, right? And depending on what the nature of the project is and who the client is, you may be able to um, negotiate uh, uh, a better deal for yourself, right? Like if I haven't, but if I were to work on Batman, right? There's no way I'm getting like I didn't make up Batman, so I'm not gonna get. I might get residuals. It depends on like what the book is. Like that can happen, but most of the time it's gonna be work for hire. They're gonna own whatever the pages you draw, you know. Uh, but in the sense of things like, um, Spaceman and Bloater is a thing that I've come up with on my own, right? No one else has ever worked on that other than me, so that's my entire thing. But I also have never been paid for that, aside from like occasional book sales. And then there's the situation like, say, what's going on with Professor Nimble, right? Where um, the doctor, the writer, came to me. We developed the idea as a team, and so we are co-owners of this property. So, hypothetically speaking, were that to be licensed to another client for some other kind of thing, a cartoon or whatever, we would be um, we would each be getting a percentage of whatever that licensing fee would be equally. Um, and so it depends on like what kind of project you're doing. I would say you always want to push for co-ownership if you're creating a book from scratch, if you're creating a property from scratch. Uh, if possible, even if you're doing character designs for something, like if you can anything where you're creating something as a team with somebody else, uh, that is not a pre-existing property, do as much as possible to protect yourself from eventually being like, oh no, wait, I worked on that. No, like that's that's never gonna be a good feeling.
How do you
Um,
do that? Who do you find? Who do you talk to? How do you find them?
uh, get anytime that you're working with somebody that you don't know very well or that you don't fully trust, a new client, new relationship, if you can afford it, uh, have a lawyer draft a contract for you, make it a business expense. Um, Specifically, like draft like an IP agreement so that people you can work out an IP agreement. Other times the collaborator will just be like, oh yeah, 50-50 down the middle. And then you just kind of like work out a friendly mutual contract, right? Um, but yeah, you kind of have to familiarize yourself with contracts. There are some free contracts. So the contracts that I use as a template are from an organization called Art Pact, which doesn't actually exist anymore, but I think you can still find their contracts online that were drafted by actual lawyers. So there's stuff; those are less for intellectual property and more for project to project. But even stuff like that, like you don't want to give people, uh, like you don't want to give a client the rights to everything right away if you can help it, because sometimes even if you're creating like a single illustration for something, you can sometimes relicense that image out to other people, right? um, Especially with something that's not unique to the project, right? Like if it's, for lack of a better term, like if it's kind of clip arty, or like something like a stock photo or anything like that, you license it for a specific purpose to somebody. It might not be an exclusive right. Whereas, if you're doing a logo for somebody or something like that, that's going to need to be a full buyout, right? And so you want to price that accordingly, because the amount of money that the client might make from that logo, if you're creating a brand for them or whatever, if you just charge them $150 and then they turn into like, you know, a very profitable company, it can, that's, I think that happened maybe with like the guy who did the Nike swoosh or something. I don't know if that's apocryphal or not, but like, yeah, you want to look at the client, look at who you're working for, look at the possible uh, implications of success for that client, and then you know price and protect yourself accordingly. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the cool things is that there are so many different ways in which you can structure these IP agreements and the assets that you're building and the partnerships
Yeah.
that you can make, and also just the peripheral work that you create through your process. I mean, you've come up with Kirby Crackle brushes. You've come up with brushes. So
Right.
talk a bit about like your Photoshop assets as another vehicle for revenue.
Right. So the brushes was a thing I started doing, um, kind of just for myself. I started making them, and then my one friend was like, "These are actually
And
really
for
good.
anyone
You
who
should
doesn't
sell
know, like
these."
what a Photoshop brush is, like just
Right. Sorry. So
give
so
some context.
yeah. So a Photoshop brush, or for me, I mainly use Clip Studio Paint, which is kind of like Photoshop. Um, they are essentially, I guess, kind of like plugins in a sense that like you load them into a program, and then you use a stylus, right? And you draw on a tablet, and they're they're essentially like, if you think about the difference between like a ballpoint pen and a brush, right? You can have the full spectrum of those, and like have very textural things, or have brushes that create paper texture overlays and stuff like that. And so they're very useful in terms of a digital art workflow, which at this point I'm basically all digital. just for efficiency's sake. And so lots of people sell these brushes, and I never thought to do that because I was like, well, who's gonna want? I'm not good enough to do that. And it's one of those things where like I don't make a ton of money from it, but I make like $40-$50 a month at least, and it's nice passive income, and it's very relaxing to make them. You're essentially when you're dealing with, I mean, and so before I go on off on another tangent, if you're speaking strictly about passive income streams, for me, brushes have worked really well. I have friends who have very good print shops. Like people really like their prints. People have never really bought many of my prints, but there's lots of different passive income streams. Some artists have their entire business is just selling prints or coming up with uh, stuff like that. There are people that do classes, that YouTube, you could make a podcast about art. You could, you could do video lessons. There's lots of YouTubers. There's like art YouTube where it's like how to draw an eye, how to draw lips, how to draw, whatever. And so that's also like a really good way to have an outlet for that. But I think if I had to make an assessment of like why brushes have worked for me, it's because it's one of those things that I am very obsessive about. Like I have way too many. I have like probably thousands of brushes, and I use maybe like charitably I will use 5% of them on a regular basis, right? So I know a lot about like what kind of brushes I like. I know what I'm trying to go for. I have a purpose in mind. And maybe that's kind of the underlying theme is like intention, right? For everything, for art in general, like you want intention. There's nothing worse than like looking at artwork that is, you look at it, you're like, I don't, right? Like
Not saying anything. Yeah.
yeah, there's liking it, hating it, and meh. And like, I would rather somebody hate my work than be like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Because like, it's fine is like, that's nothing. That means I didn't do my job. It means I didn't inspire anybody. It didn't piss anyone off. Like I didn't do anything. I
You
just
didn't
kind of
no, they didn't feel anything at all. They
right.
had
They
no
just looked at
response.
it and went
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. And like, obviously there are always going to be people that feel that way. There's always going to be, no art is ever going to please everybody. There are people that hate hate artists that I love and vice versa. So I think intentionality, having something to say. You brought up stories earlier, and like the significance of that to me is, and this is I'm taking this from Brian McDonald, who I think he has a podcast called "You Are a Storyteller," which is very good. I recommend people check that out. He also has some books on writing, and he talks about stories as survival information. Stories are survival information, right? It's the most natural way to pass on something important that you want to tell somebody. And we all know how to do that inherently. And the only difference between somebody who does comic books for a living and someone who doesn't is that I've spent a lot more time trying to figure out how to do that in like an easy way. And I'm still working on it, and I will be working on it until I die. I'm never going to be happy. So it's like if you think of any story that any friend has ever told you, that's, when you get it, you're like, oh, right, I get why they brought that up. And it could have nothing to do with it initially. And there's nothing worse than being in front of somebody who's trying to tell you a story and you're like, what is this person talking about? Right? I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard something recently. I don't know who to attribute it to, but it was never tell a story without making a point, and never make a point without telling a story. And I think that there's something really cute about that, but also very true, which is the best way in which we communicate is stories. That is how we convey meaning to one another. And to just tell something, the point can be to make someone laugh or to impart information or to sell or whatever, to entertain. But if you truly have no point at all for telling your story, the viewer, and you can tell a story with words, you can tell them with art, you can tell them with tons of different mediums. But if you tell a story and there is no point, you get that response at the end, which is what, meh, what,
Right.
I don't get it. Like there's just there's this weird vacuum of like non-response, and you're waiting
Right.
for something. And the
Right.
inverse is true too of you want to tell a story that has a point, and then if you want to make a point, the best way to do it is through storytelling. It's very natural and it's built into us.
Right. Definitely. I think that yeah, that's true because if you're trying to tell a story, you want to be able to like you want to know what you're saying, right? And when you sometimes like I probably people have had this experience. You like watch a movie and you're like giving it the benefit of the doubt, and then it ends, and you're kind of like, why did
The
I
fuck
spend
happened?
2 hours? Why did I spend 2 hours doing that? Like that was
Yeah.
because that's the other thing. You don't want to wait. Like as an artist, like you don't want to waste somebody's time, right? And that doesn't mean that the meaning has to be crystal clear immediately, right? It's just that you want it. You want the intentionality to show through.
Yeah, and the intentionality can be confusion. That's okay, but
Sure, if that's
there's
what
got
you're
to be a
going for,
reason
yeah,
for what you're trying to evoke.
right, yeah,
In this day and age, I feel like I can't do a podcast without talking about AI. So
okay,
let's go there.
all
You are
right,
an artist. Your entire
mm-hmm.
livelihood is based on creating unique custom art. We've
Mm-hmm.
invented, and by we I mean humanity has come up with this tool, generative AI. It can make, do we call it art? It can make images in split seconds
Sure.
off of other people's art. It has ultimately learned off of other images. What are your thoughts on generative AI at all?
Okay, let's see. I'll be very careful about the way that I speak about this. I'm going to think of my
Don't be
point
careful.
beforehand. No,
Yeah.
I just mean I don't want to ramble. Um, I would say as an artist, um, I feel that the current state of AI, um, not necessarily as a whole or as a technology as a whole, but in the way that it is being rolled out and utilized is very dangerous, specifically for artists. Um, Anyone who's keeping up with the news will know about the writer's strike, the actor's strike that is current, the writer's strike that has concluded, the actor's strike, which is SAG after, which is still ongoing. One of the big sticking points for that campaign or for that strike, rather, that union was uh, the use of AI by the studios. Right? They wanted to be able to use AI for scripts to replace screenwriters. I think. I mean, this is from what my understanding. I'm not part of either one of these unions, and I think there was even a part of the SAG contract where the studios wanted to be able to scan a likeness of a background actor or any actor and be able to deploy that in any way they saw fit through the use of AI. Um, and obviously, that's very bad for those workers. And for my job specifically, obviously, illustrators, comic book artists, we do not have a union, uh, but people have had their styles had the generative AI trained on their styles without their consent. We talked earlier about IP and all of that kind of stuff and the implications therein. So AI to me is it's a dangerous thing considering that a lot of times people like me are not economically secure, right? Like I am not pulling in millions of dollars a year and most artists are not, especially illustrators, right? Um maybe Mike Mignola, but I'm sure probably not. Like, not most of us. And so the thing that frustrates me about AI in its current state is, let's see, how do I, it's frustrating because artists are already, not to put myself in the shoes of being a victim. I don't consider myself to be a victim of any kind, but it's, we are already, there are a lot of people that are already trying to enter into this field to to be able to make a living. And AI is now making that a lot harder, right? Or could in the future, right? And so you are, because of the way that the AI works, where you're training it off of imagery that already exists, by shrinking that pool, you are also making the AI worse potentially in the long term, which is not really my concern. But like, I don't know. It feels like I don't fully understand the point of it, other than to benefit cost saving, right? And I don't think that's really a good implementation of a technology like that. I feel like you think of people when they retire, right? Or like people that throughout their life, like, what do they want to be? What do they want to do? There's a lot of people that are like, oh, I want to write a novel, or oh, I want to pick up painting, or, and it doesn't mean that AI existing would stop people from doing that, but like, art is such an innately human thing, at least the way that I view it. And I don't, I don't see the purpose behind having a make art button, essentially, which I know there are people that might be watching this that are be like, prompting takes more skill than that. It's like, okay, but like, it doesn't take as much skill as like learning how to draw.
Yeah. And
It
it's
just
also
doesn't.
not, yeah, it's definitely a very different flavor. But I mean, what is the path forward? Because I think with every every advent of technology, there is always someone who loses, right? And
Sure,
there's always, some benefit gained. I mean, in theory, right? So cell phones
sure,
come out, then the telephone companies and the phone operators, no longer have jobs. Or you just look through all of history, there's always someone who, when the photograph came out, portrait illustrator painters were probably way less in demand because no one wanted to have their portrait painted, which took way longer. They just wanted to get a photograph taken of them and have that in their book rather than, or whatever, right? So there's
right.
always this relentless progress of technology. What do you think it is here now? So what do you think a viable path forward is?
I mean, I think so. When I'm looking at anything like this, I would say the first thing you want to look at is, who is this benefiting and who is it hurting, right? Or who does it have the potential to benefit and who does it have the potential to hurt, right? There's a lot of talk about AI being a tool, which I would push back on in terms of it being a tool to help artists. I do think it's a tool. I don't know if it's a tool designed to help artists. I think it's a tool designed to cut costs, in the attention economy, if that's the right phrase to use, like in the clicking, scrolling, whatever. People don't spend as much time with an image as you used to, where you're like taking out a book and checking it out of the library and looking at an art book for 2 weeks and like poring over it. It's like you see it and you're like, oh, that looks kind of cool, and you double tap and you like it and you move on. You don't notice that like all the details are wrong, right? Which, like, again, that could be fixed with future training models and all that kind of stuff. But fundamentally, like, who is that hurting, right? It's hurting people like me. It's hurting people who have bigger followings than me, right? Who have their work fed into, I saw things like, oh, I can make, okay, so one like really egregious example. There was an illustrator named Kim Jong-gi. He was fantastic. He was like one of the best artists I'd ever seen. You can look him up. He has these videos where he does these big ink drawings in like 4 point perspective, and he's just doing it. He's not sketching anything out. He's like got he's and it all lines up perfectly, right? It's amazing. He died, I think, last year, right? He was young. It was a sudden death. And after he died, somebody on Twitter posted like, "Oh, I fed his work into an AI, and like, look, I can draw like him now." And it's like, obviously, not it doesn't. It's not the movement as a whole, but it's like that's to me, that's like hype, like very disrespectful, right?
Yeah.
Especially like that soon afterwards. And it's just like I don't know if that tracks as a point. It's just like I don't see what the point is. I think if
Yeah. I
you
mean, I think
want if you like
if you can
artists,
replicate someone, right? If you can
yeah,
replicate someone very cheaply, then it devalues the source material. It devalues that
right,
original artist,
yeah.
and I think that's definitely a very scary thing. I do think
I
though that humans innately connect to humanity, and so while there maybe there's more fast art in kind of this new world, and we'll see what happens as it evolves. I do think that humans have always, you can pay for an exact replica of, I don't know, the Mona Lisa or something. And I'm sure
sure,
you could find it on eBay and it's, painted on oil or whatever. It's a very good replica. And yet the Mona Lisa itself, humans will know that that is the real one. Therefore, it is more valuable. And so there is this thing of like human perception creates value just by knowing something about something, whether you can distinguish it with the eye or not. I don't know if that comes into play or
sure.
not, but it is an interesting perspective too.
I would say so. That is true. What I would say is I think the way forward, right? Because I don't think I really touched on that. I think the way forward for this is legislation. Like we need, or some kind of rulemaking. There has to be something that's like this, like what's going on with the unions, where they're saying like we are not going to let you make screenwriting an obsolete profession, right? Like it's fine if you want to like dick around on Midjourney or whatever, and you just want to like make whatever images. If that's the intent, I guess fine enough. There's still ethical questions whether or not like people can consent to having their art be a training element, right? Um, but I when you're talking about bringing it into the commercial space, I think that starts hurting livelihoods. And I think if we're concerned about keeping artwork, you know, like you're saying, like have people enjoy artwork made by humans, right? Then that I don't want to see that become like a cottage industry. I want that to remain what it is. I don't want to like have it like, oh well, I was going to be an illustrator, but as soon as I got out of college, none of the art jobs existed anymore because suddenly everything was AI and like companies didn't want to pay for artists; they only wanted to pay for AI because they had like one guy named Joe in the back. Not sorry, anyone named Joe. Working on Midjourney, putting in prompts about like whatever. It's like okay, fine, but like that's not. My main concern is like if we had a system, right? If we had a system where no one had to worry about their livelihoods, then like sure, I guess I don't care, right? Like if I'm not trying, if artwork isn't the thing I need to eat, need to be able to make to eat, or like intellectual property isn't the thing I need to be able to create in order to survive, right? Pay my bills, that kind of thing, then sure. I guess I don't have a problem with it in that abstract sense, but that's not the world we're in. And so
It's
like I think it's
definitely not the
really
world we're in.
important. Yeah, it's really important that if you are somebody who says that you like art, you are somebody who appreciates the work of artists, then your goal as a human being, in whatever interactions you are engaging in, to some level should be to like, okay, let's make sure that artists are still like a value part of society, right?
Yeah. And
Because
I
everyone
think the
has like a
interesting
movie or a show or whatever that they love, and don't
one of
want
the
to wax
parts that
poetic.
you said, I think that is probably where the crux of the issue is in the commercial side, right? So when you start bringing these tools into the commercial side and they're being used to replace, that's when it can have those repercussions. And it is tough because in theory it drives down costs, or maybe rather than having, you know, storyboards that are, one style. You can have them in 15 different styles, and then you can see which one most effectively communicates what you're trying to communicate for the storyboards or whatever it is. But then it also does have this kind of dual-sided coin of, well, whose job are you, removing or changing to be a prompt engineer rather than an artist now. So
Right.
maybe Jason in the future has a prompting job because he's really good at knowing all the different types of 5,000 brushes that he could ask for in terms of how it's generated. And so
Sure.
your knowledge of art still helps you, but you're not actually doing the work because it's far faster to
Well,
programmatically generate it.
I would also say that I was trying to get at this point earlier, but I think I kind of lost it. The the thing about art is it's like, why do we want to automate the thing that's fun? Right? Like, I can understand, and maybe there are people that might be listening to this that would push back on this. I can understand using AI to like analyze massive data sets of like, you know, things that you need, like calculations or, something that is humanly like very tedious and difficult, right? I can understand the implementation of like AI of like, you know, for NASA or something, right? But why do we want to bring that into art? Like, I mean, there are elements of it that still are there, right? Like, you could, I'm sure people will make the argument like Photoshop has the content aware fill, not, and I'm not talking about the AI one, but just like the normal content aware fill. Like, yeah, I mean, that technically would be a form of, AI, not like AI, not like general intelligence AI, but just the way that we're talking about it now. But that is a tool, right? That speeds up a tedious thing. An
I think that's an
illustration,
interesting point. Speeding up a tedious task that an
right?
artist does versus
Yeah,
replacing the entire work that an artist does.
right. And I think that's a thing that to me, that's a big distinction, right? Like a good digital tool. Like the reason that I work digitally is because I can sketch something out and be like, oh, it's a little bit off. I'll select it and move it over, right? And that's different than like what if I'm working on paper and I wanted to do that, I either have to trace it and move it, right? Or I have to like cut it out and paste it, right? All that kind of stuff. And that's tedious and annoying, right? Now, but whereas like on the computer, I can select it, move it, it takes 5 seconds, whereas like it would take me 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, right? So when you're using a tool to speed up a tedious task like that, then it's like, okay, this is actually a tool. This is a thing that's making my job easier versus something that's taking my job away to save money.
Right.
And
Making your
like,
job easier for someone else.
right, making my job, yeah, and doing it, at least at this point, doing it worse in most cases. Like, let's
Yeah.
be honest. Like most of the art I've seen is like impressive if you look at it for 2 seconds and then you dig in, you're like, well, I mean, the hands are actually getting better now, but like, and again, like that's a thing, like it will get better just by the
Yeah.
nature of it, of technology. But I think that's a very important, there's a moral question to this as well as like a, just like because we can do something doesn't mean we should do something. And like from a financial aspect, it's benefiting companies. It's benefiting people that just want to, save a little bit of money. And it's
Yeah.
anyway.
It's an
So
interesting world. We'll have to have you back on in the not so distant future and see how
sure.
this plays out because it's
Yeah.
still early days.
Yeah.
Jason, if people want to find out more about your art, follow you, support you, where should they find you?
They can go to jasonpiperberg.com. That's where it's kind of my hub. You can find everything, or you can look up at Jason Piperberg on most social media. I don't think I have a Threads account yet. I'm kind of like waiting to see where that goes. But I've got a Blue Sky. I've still got Twitter. I've got Instagram. You can check out my books. There's links in that in the description. I have a crowdfunding campaign for a new book called Binary C. That is, I guess, kind of like Master and Commander and meets Star Trek. There's sci-fi uh, adventure kind of book. And that's launching on November 6th. So there should be a link for that in the description too. Yeah.
I bought my copy.
Oh, my
Check
thanks.
it out. It's good stuff.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Jason, thanks
All
for
right.
coming on the show. It was
Thanks for
always a
having
pleasure
me.
to have you.